Welcome to the Empowered Podcast, episode number 76. Today we're going to talk about email marketing. In episode number 63, a few weeks ago, we had the brain behind Authority Engine, Ben Kruger, on the show. That episode is called Why the Experts Say the Money is in the List. So if you haven't listened to that episode, go to empoweredpodcast.com/63. Check out that episode because it's true. The money is in the list. And today we're going to talk specifically about some of the tools that you can use to build your business. I just switched to Get Response, and I'll put a link to that in the show notes for this episode, empoweredpodcast.com/76. But I've been using Get Response for a while now and really like that. But I wanted to talk about two of the most popular tools that are out there, MailChimp and Aweber. And we're going to go into some of the benefits, the strengths of each one, some of the weaknesses of each one. I'm going to give you my first impressions, how the get started process is with each one of those tools. We'll go into how you can add subscription forms. Of course, since this is audio only, I'll describe part of that process and point you in the right direction. We'll look at sending one-time emails, how that works with MailChimp and Aweber, which types of campaign or broadcast that you would like to use, or which one will get you the most results, and which one of these tools will help you grow from blog into a business. And then we've got a couple more things that we'll touch on, but I wanted to give you a taste of what's coming up in this episode. So again, we're going to look at MailChimp, we're going to look at Aweber, and which one is right for you and your podcast, your blog, or your growing online business. So let's go right into it. And as you may have heard, email is one of the best ways that you can connect with anyone in any community, and it's better than social media. Let me give you an example. When you want to sign up for Facebook, what do you have to enter? Your email. When you want to sign up for Twitter, you have to enter your email. LinkedIn, email, any of these social networks. Yeah, sometimes you can log in with Facebook or log into Twitter for some of these other things, but most of these social networks require you to have an email address. An email is the best way to connect with anybody, whether they're your readers, whether they are your listeners, or someone in a club or a group that you have. Email is the best way to connect with them. And when you're looking at your audience and with your customers, social media just moves too fast. And if you're trying to keep up with Facebook's ever-changing algorithms, you're going to be pulling your hair out. Well, at the end of 2014, I decided to try Aweber. I've been using MailChimp for about 3 years. They were the very first service, and honestly, they're the first service that I would suggest that you try out as well. When you're first starting out, and I'm giving you a teaser of the bottom line that you'll get at the end of this episode, but when you're just starting out, you don't need $20 for Aweber, $15 for Get Response, much less $200 or $300 for Infusionsoft or something like that. If you are just starting out, or even if you're in the intermediate stages, MailChimp is something that I would highly recommend that you check out, at least until you start making enough money to cover the costs. But anyway, at the end of 2014, I decided to try Aweber. And as I just mentioned, I've been using MailChimp for about 3 years. I still, to this day, use them. I still have an account with them. And I wanted to see what the competition was like. So that's where I came up with this testing of Aweber, which turned into testing half a dozen different tools, but we're going to get into that here in just a second. But for the past year, I've been loading templates and sending them out as my autoresponders every single week, and I would type them up, save a template, and then select the people who have signed up and send those templates as these autoresponders, and I was doing it manually. You could save the templates, but the sending and scheduling and choosing who gets those autoresponders, I was doing it all by hand. And honestly, I made some goofs. I sent the same email twice, which is kind of embarrassing, and I got things mixed up a few times. But because my do-it-yourself strategy was becoming so complicated to manage, just like the errors that I mentioned before, sending the wrong things, it wasn't a very consistent experience for people who were joining my email list. Now, they didn't know, unless they got the same email twice, they didn't know it was inconsistent, but I knew, and I wanted to create a level of consistency so I could scale with more and more subscribers, add more people into a funnel, and really get them involved in my community. And you might want to be doing these same things. But again, I tested these templates and this do-it-yourself DIY strategy for 3 or 4 months before I realized, hey, Ellery, you kind of need some help. But again, I became interested in the easy autoresponders that come with these more premium services, specifically Aweber. And if you're looking at which of these 2 email marketing services are right for you and where you are in your business, keep listening, because I'm going to share again my first impressions, some key features and benefits, and which service I decided to move forward with. So let's go into the very first impressions that I had. When you log into MailChimp, it's a very unique, kind of quirky experience. The personality behind the creators of MailChimp definitely shows in everything, almost everything anyway, that you see. Whenever you send a campaign, this smiling monkey gives you a high five, and it's very unique. When you log into Aweber for the first time, it's kind of an official feeling process. It was somewhat sterile. Honestly, it seems like Aweber would have been really forward thinking, maybe in the mid 2000s. It just somewhat feels a little bit outdated today, but it's clear they care about vetting the end users, not necessarily you as the owner of the list, but it cares about your security, but more importantly, the security of the people that are on your list. And we'll go into that here in just a second. But my first impression, again, with Aweber is that it looked a little bit outdated. It does what it does. It's like going into a work garage. It does what it does. It holds your tools, but it doesn't have the quirky, unique, or just fun experience that you might have with MailChimp. So where MailChimp looked clean and modern, Aweber looks clean and sparse. So for me, MailChimp was a little bit easier to navigate as well. So based strictly on first impressions, I would have to give the win or give this round to MailChimp. The second thing that I evaluated is the getting started process. When I started with MailChimp, I was really green as a blogger. I had heard about MailChimp. I don't even know when I first started if I had even heard of Aweber before, but I wanted a free solution. So that's how I found MailChimp, and I didn't quite understand the importance of building an email list. And again, if you go back and listen to episode number 63, you'll know what I'm talking about. Again, why Ben and I agree that the money is in the list. But because I was so new to the online world, I didn't really have an existing list. Well, I didn't at all have an existing list to import into their system. When I first joined Aweber 3 years or 2.5 years later, I did have a list to import. So when you sign into Aweber for the first time, if you do have an email list you want to import, I want to give you a word of caution. If you're not paying close enough attention, Aweber will email every single one of your subscribers asking them to opt in to your list. Even if they've opted into your list from MailChimp or some other service that you've been using. I've kind of coined this term triple opt-in. They've already double opted in to your list on MailChimp. When you import them into Aweber, it's that third opt-in, so that's where I came up with the triple opt-in idea. Even as I read the confirmation email, they give you a template of what they're about to send. I didn't understand. It wasn't clear to me what was about to happen. If I'd known I was about to email hundreds of people, I would have changed the wording just a little bit. And the result of this goof was that a good chunk of the people who were on my MailChimp list didn't re-opt in. They didn't go through the triple opt-in process with Aweber. The result of that is not everybody signed up, and it's kind of heard about that. So I sent them an email asking them to click the opt-in, and I apologized for the confusion. Another result from this kind of mishap, this mistake, is that people thought the email was spam. My wife sent me a text message and asked me what the heck was going on. She took a screenshot of it and said, "Is this spam?" And you can imagine if you've already opted into somebody's list and you've been getting their emails or these maybe poorly done autoresponder templates like I've been using, and then all of a sudden you get asked to opt in again, it's a little bit weird. So I would just really caution that. I'll go into some ways that you can get around that process here in just a second, but that really kind of bugged me. Another thing about the onboarding process, the getting started process with Aweber, is that they also filtered out email addresses that started with an info. Like instead of Ellery at whatever, it was info at whatever. So for example, Aweber removed, or they called it scrubbed, a handful of people who had signed up and even provided me with their name. One in particular I know even signed up for my 30 days email course, clicked through that, it was a real person, and she signed up and joined our private Facebook group. So she's a real person, and I understand why they scrub these info at email addresses or CEO. These are what they call position email addresses. So the person who owns that position can change. Like if I'm going to say Susan was info at google.com and Susan got promoted or left the company or changed, someone else took over that role, that person might not want these emails. So the email is a position related instead of person related. So again, I understand that, but MailChimp had let those emails through, and a lot of other providers do as well. But Aweber, just without any sort of warning, without any way to contact those people, they, quote, scrubbed those email addresses and wouldn't let them go through. So this person who had signed up with an email or an info at email for my 30 days course, she automatically would not be able to receive those emails from me with Aweber. And it caused some additional confusion. So I wouldn't call that necessarily like strike two, but it rubbed me the wrong way. So I'm going to give you a breakdown of how you can avoid this, quote, triple opt-in email from Aweber. Now, to get the full access to these images and how to do this and the screenshots throughout this episode, I'm going to be referencing about 10 to 12 different screenshots that I took. Make sure you go to empoweredpodcast.com/76 so you can get a link to all of that and see it. There's no opt-in or anything, but you obviously you're just listening to me, so there's no way to share that information. So there's an article on Aweber's support site that will explain what I'm explaining to you, but I've, again, provided some of these links for you. So if you go to their support site and contact their support team, which it's aweber.com/contact-us, you can ask them to allow you to import your list. Yes, you heard me right. You have to ask permission to import the list you already own without sending this confirmation message again. They'll email you back later. It took me about 24 hours, and you get some questions like the following. And again, there's a screenshot of it if you want to go check it out. It says, "Thank you for contacting us, blah, blah, blah. Be happy to look over your request, blah, blah, blah. Please reply to the email with the answers to these questions." And they ask, "Are you a current customer?" Well, yes. How else would we be asking you to import our list? They want to know your login in the list that you would like to import to. That's actually important because you want to tell them which list you want to import these specific people to. So I have a list for my membership site members, for my mastermind members, which I would have to ask their permission to import to those lists every time I got a new person signed up for my membership site. A big pain, but it makes sense in this case. They ask how many subscribers you're looking to import. And then they ask something kind of weird. There's about, I think, 10 questions here, but then they said, are you managing this list currently with a third party system like MailChimp? And if so, what system? Please provide the login and password so we may review your campaign health. We won't disturb your account in any way. This really bugged me. I've had people across different services and stuff ask me for my login and password, but with all of the security online that we've been having the last few years, all these issues of hacks, there was a few years ago, there was a thing where employers were asking people for their Facebook login information, and it's kind of like internet privacy age that we live in. Why in the world do you need my login and password? Well, in MailChimp, by the way, you can add sub-accounts. So if you can't get around this, you can go into your account, and I think it's probably add users, and you can add anything from an admin to someone who just views this list. It's called a guest viewer account or something. And you could give the Aweber team that login. So set up just a dummy email or a login and a password and give them view only access. You could do that. But just to be clear, I did not give anybody my MailChimp login or password. I think it's ridiculous that they ask, but I did, again, offer to set them up with this. I didn't have to, but I offered to, and they didn't ask again, and they still approved my ability to import to those lists. So about 48 hours after I made this initial request, which is ridiculous, and I mean 2 days later, whatever, Aweber, but I was able to upload an Excel spreadsheet with my subscribers and able to avoid this triple opt-in headache that I did the first time. So the first time I imported, they email blasted everybody, and it totally caught me off guard. The wife again thought it was spam, but by going through this process where you have to ask their blessed approval to import your existing list, you can do that. Here a couple other things that I noticed when I got started. If you want to email your subscribers, MailChimp calls those campaigns. Aweber calls those emails broadcasts. GetResponse calls them newsletters. So every email that you send, if it's just a one-time email, it's either going to be a campaign or a broadcast, or again with GetResponse, it's going to be a newsletter. When you import to Aweber, even if you don't have the triple opt-in temporarily removed, they still have to approve it. And that's kind of weird too. You submit your list to Aweber and they have to check it. I thought it was kind of weird, but GetResponse does the same thing. They want to make sure, these companies, when you're using these premium services, they want to make sure that you're not using an identical list that somebody else is using or imported. I've only had one, I've had a handful of people be scrubbed. They were on a kind of a blacklist email. Apparently there's a federal database, kind of like a do not call list, that maybe that checks that against. Aweber or MailChimp didn't do that. Their imports are relatively instantaneous. GetResponse took maybe 2 to 3 minutes. Aweber took 20 to 30 minutes. So just keep that in mind. So based on the startup process and getting going, importing your list, I have to give this round to MailChimp as well. The next thing that I looked at, and I get this type of question, or I see this type of question all over Facebook. I'm in some WordPress groups, I'm in some writing groups, I'm in some podcasting groups, and several times a month, people are asking, just not me specifically necessarily, but asking in general, how do I add a subscription form, or how do I embed a subscription form on my sidebar in posts or something like that. And again, this is where you'll want to go to empoweredpodcast.com/76 so that you can get a link to where all of these screenshots are. But if you're going to grow your email list, obviously you need a way for people to get on it. Sometimes these are called bribes. Sometimes they're called lead magnets. Whatever you want to call them, you need to have a way for people to sign up so that they can receive them. Well, MailChimp and Aweber have WordPress plugins that are relatively good for easy integration. I have used the MailChimp plugin. I did not use the Aweber, but in both cases, I found copying and pasting some HTML code. So you design it on the mail services site, they spit out some HTML code, you can copy and paste that into your WordPress site. So you would go to your dashboard, you would go to Appearance, you would go to widgets, and you would create a new text widget, and that's where you would paste that HTML code. So again, both services allow you to do that. Both services, and I'll throw GetResponse in there too since I'm using them. All three services integrate with AppSumo. So if you're SumoMe rather. So if you're using the SumoMe pop-ups and the header bar and the list builder, which I would highly recommend that you do use SumoMe. If you use that or Opt-in Skin or Optimized Press, all three services integrate with that fairly well. However, if you don't have any of those premium tools, all the ones that I mentioned except for SumoMe you have to pay for. If you don't have any of those premium tools and you want to embed HTML code on a landing page or in a text widget on your sidebar like I just described, it does get somewhat more complicated. MailChimp seems to be a bit easier, but Aweber's forms seem to have more options, as well as GetResponse. There's quite a variety of skins and ways that you can make those look different or better. Add forms, make it just email only, all those kinds of things. I think the easiest one to use is MailChimp. On one hand, MailChimp has code that you can copy and paste with relative ease, and their form builder is pretty basic and works with a visual editor. Again, go to the screenshots to see how this process is, but you would go to your list, you would go to sign up forms, and then you would select the embedded forms button there inside of MailChimp. And after you see that, you'll be taken to a page where you can customize the title of the form, set the form width, and customize that. And it's fairly easy, straightforward. Not a whole lot of options with MailChimp, but it's probably the easiest one to do. Now, I'll give you a quick tip that most people probably don't notice. So if you want to change the word subscribe on that button, you can go to the part of the code where it says in parentheses submit and then close parentheses value equals quote subscribe quote. Now in this one it's capitalized. In the screenshot you'll see it's capitalized. You can change the value to almost anything, to send it to me or give me the download or yes, I want this or something like that. Don't change the one that says name equals subscribe, and that's a lowercase, because that's how your email service knows what data people are putting in to put it to send to your service. So if you change that, you might get someone's first name as their email address and their last name as their first name and their email address as first name _ last name or something weird. So you can change the value, but don't change the name, if that makes sense. And again, there's a screenshot of that on the blog post that is linked. If you make those changes that I just was talking about, how you can edit those in the MailChimp editor, you can copy and paste that box that it says copy and paste onto your site. It makes it real easy onto your site, and you've got a simple, very straightforward opt-in box. On the other hand, Aweber gives you the option to redirect a new subscriber to a customized thank you page. Now this is really cool because if you subscribe to my list, which you should go do that right now. Go to ellery-wells.com/awesome if you want to be awesome and be on that awesome list. If you subscribe to that, you can have with Aweber them, once they hit submit or subscribe or join or get now, whatever you want your button to say, you can have them rerouted to a custom thank you page. Here's why that's nice and why I like this. I didn't used to do this, but why I changed is it tells people, hey, I'm sending you an email right now. You need to click confirm. Once you do that, I can send you all of this cool stuff that you are interested in receiving. It says step 1, check your inbox. Step 2, click, blah, blah, blah. You can create that custom thank you page. MailChimp does not have that ability. It's a little bit more advanced. And while MailChimp is easy, again, you give up some of this advanced customization that Aweber and GetResponse, and I'm sure Infusionsoft has it as well. Aweber will also give you the option to skip subscribers directly to your second autoresponder, which is kind of nice if you want to, if you embed their form and you want people to skip the first welcome email or here's something about me email, you can skip them directly to a second, or I think maybe even the third autoresponder. I never did that, and I don't know that there's necessarily a whole lot of application for that unless there's something in that first email that you want them to not see or not have to get again. But again, you have that option. So MailChimp embedded forms, they're easier to create and they're easier to add to a sidebar text widget, but they're also more beginner friendly, but they also don't have some of the advanced options that you would get with some of the more premium email marketing services. So for this reason, and because I think most people would rather simple than just options out the wazoo, for those reasons, I will also give this round to MailChimp, but only by a little bit. The next area that I wanted to look at is sending one-time emails. If you're hosting an event or you want to make an announcement that's not necessarily a recurring thing, it's really time related, it's not evergreen content like you should be putting into an autoresponders, you want to send out one-time emails. So again, in MailChimp, those are called campaigns. In Aweber, they're called broadcasts. In GetResponse, they are called newsletters. So the most important part about an email marketing service is that actual email, the campaign, the broadcast, or the newsletter. And you want those emails to be first opened. Second, you want people to actually read what you are sending them. And then third, if you have a link in there, and you should be including some sort of call to action in all of your emails, by the way, whether it's hit reply and respond or click this button to enroll or, here's another download, you want a call to action, but that's what you want. You want people opening your emails, reading them, and then clicking them wherever applicable. Aweber claims to be known for, from their website, quote, industry-leading deliverability. If you can get more of your emails in front of more of your readers, you'll get more sales and make better connections. Now, it makes sense that they have industry-leading deliverability because they scour every email list that you import. So while they're more strict on the front end, they might be able to promise this industry-leading deliverability, but it's still kind of a pain. And again, I know from migrating one more time to GetResponse, they also clean the list that you import and things like that. You just don't have to ask this permission. And as a side note, I did do a pretty significant amount of research. If you know anything about me, I'm very analytical. I like looking at all the details, watching YouTube videos, reading blog posts, reviews, and those kinds of things. I found that while Aweber has a slightly higher delivery rate than GetResponse has a higher open and click rate. Just a fun fact for you. So to create an email to send to your subscribers with Aweber, you'll use the broadcast email templates. I recommend you send them as HTML, but they need to be text emails. Texts are more likely to get in somebody's inbox, and they're easier to read than if you use a whole bunch of images. When you get spam emails, of course, the ones from like the Nigerian lady who's got $100 million sitting in a bank account, those are all text. But a very popular tool is sending, or a spam tactic is to send one large email or image in your email. So, by the way, like I said, go with these text emails. With Aweber, you can create your own or use one of theirs. I found their tool to be a little bit cumbersome and kind of hard to navigate, honestly. I thought it was a little bit clunky. I'm a fairly technical person, and I found Aweber's create a broadcast and create the autoresponder, for that matter, to be a little bit weird. It just didn't seem to be very intuitive to me. So that may be just me. But if you go to messages in Aweber and broadcast and choose code your own HTML, if you choose that option, you'll get to create your emails. And I've got a screenshot of that, linked in the post. If you choose the plain text emails, just FYI, you won't get any formatting. You can't bold anything. You can't underline anything, which don't underline because people have been now trained to think anything underlined is a hyperlink. but you won't get any of those formatting options, bullet points or whatever. So by choosing Code Your Own HTML option, which may sound intimidating, you just get those same options and you can still create a plain text email. The reason why you do that is if you were to open up Google or Gmail or Yahoo Mail or whatever iPhone users use, or Outlook, I use Outlook for my stuff, and you were to just start typing an email, that is an HTML email. So if you want to include any links, you'll need to use an HTML email. Now, I still take my links and show the full thing. So, go to empoweredpodcast.com/70 and it will show empoweredpodcast.com/70 in the URL of the email. You can't link that. You can't create that as an actual hyperlink in text email. So just watch out for that. On the other hand, when you create a campaign in MailChimp, you get to choose from a variety of options. They strip out against some of these more advanced things, which I don't recommend that you use anyway, but they'll give you the regular old campaign, which they do have OL with the apostrophe. That's their personality coming out. Or a plain text campaign, A/B split campaign, or an RSS-driven campaign. So the best option is the regular old campaign. If you use plain text campaigns, there's no tracking, no formatting. You can't tell who opens your emails or who clicks on them. If you want to split test headlines or times, you want to decide if 8 a.m. or 8 p.m. better, you can use A/B split campaigns, which I really think, which GetResponse does really well. Instead of A/B split, instead of two options, there's like 4 or 5. So if you wanted to test several different variables with a larger list, you can do that. And then again, RSS driven campaigns, which if you want someone to receive an email every time you publish a new post or podcast episode, and that the RSS campaign will do that for you. Again, for best open rates, best results, I generally go with a regular old campaign, and then in MailChimp you have the opportunity to choose simple text. It doesn't allow you to do multiple columns or a whole lot of things, but that's what I would recommend. Simple text emails sent as an HTML, like I mentioned before, are most closely what would resemble something that you would send from your Gmail account or Outlook or something like that. But the HTML aspect of it allows you, again, to track opens and clicks while still getting your email sent to the inbox instead of promotions or the junk folder. When Gmail implemented the promotions and social tabs in the fall of 2013, people really had to start examining how they were doing emails, because it did I don't want to say it did a better job of filtering out some of that stuff, because even the relevant emails get caught. So just keep in mind, no more than 2 links in an email, little to no images, trying to just make it as close to what you would send to your mom or your sister or your friend as possible. That's what you want to go for when you're sending emails from your online business. Emails, one more time, full of pictures, emails full of pictures and links are more likely to get filtered into your subscriber spam or promotions folders, and emails in those folders rarely get seen. I saw a statistic where only 2% of people with email, which is pretty much everybody in the world, only 2% of people actually go in on a regular basis and check those folders. So if they're going to those folders, you're kind of SOL. People aren't going to be reading your stuff anyway. At least 98% of them won't anyway. So when it comes to sending campaigns in MailChimp, you have 2 options: send now or schedule for later. If you schedule for later, you can pick a time, but not a time zone. If you have the advanced service, you can do I don't know if they call it a time travel or whatever, but if I send something at 8 a.m. my time, it's 6 a.m. in California. But with some of these more premium services where you can check the time zone difference, I'll send it and I'll get it at 8 a.m. People in California will get it 2 hours later at their 8 a.m. People in Hawaii will get it 6 or 8 hours later at their 8 a.m. and so on and so forth. So if you send it, just be conscious that it could be in the middle of the night for someone. I have a lot of people in the UK and Australia, so it's nice on these more advanced services like Aweber and Get Response so that I can choose this time travel option instead of me sending stuff when it's convenient for me. And Dean down in Australia gets it and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning or whatever. So just be conscious of that. In Aweber, you can send your emails based on the time zone of the reader, just like I mentioned. And again, that's a great opportunity, especially if it's time sensitive information. So MailChimp may be easier to use, but Aweber might get you into the inbox at a higher rate. Plus Aweber makes the time zone adjustments. So this round is kind of a toss up, but sending one-time broadcast emails, I actually give this a equal tie, 50-50 split to both Aweber and MailChimp. And if you are at home keeping score, or you're on the treadmill keeping score, don't worry. Again, all of this will be linked at empoweredpodcast.com/76. I think I said the wrong number before, just to be clear. It's episode 76, and you can see kind of the scorecard there. So don't worry about keeping track, and I'll wrap it up here at the end with a nice little tiny bow or a big bow, whichever. I guess that all depends on your perspective, whether it's a big bow or a tiny bow. The next thing that I wanted to look at is growing your blog to a business, or growing your podcast into an actual business. So whenever you are ready to scale, whenever you're ready to grow and go to the next level, there are two main reasons why you should consider spending more time, effort, and money on a premium service like Aweber, Get Response, Constant Contact, Infusionsoft. There's a bunch of different tools, but there's a couple things, really only two, that you need to consider when you are about to open your wallet, open your pocketbook or PayPal account and spend money. The first thing is, one, to see if they are getting, if that service is better at getting your emails into the inbox of your community. People who sign up with a Gmail address typically see a awfully low percentage of what I send. So half of my subscribers roughly have registered and signed up with a Gmail address, and roughly 1/3 of those don't see my emails. Their open rate is extremely low. So if you are looking at one of these premium services like we're talking about, make sure, or do some testing. That's the best way to do it. Split test your own. Send your newsletter, your campaign, your broadcast, or whatever they want to call it. Send the same thing to half of your list, and send the same thing to the other half using MailChimp, and just see if there's a big difference in open rates or click rates. The second thing that you want to do is, when you're specifically looking at scaling your blog into a business, your podcast into business, the second thing you want to look at is, do they provide a way for you to stay in front of your audience with autoresponders? That one's kind of straightforward, but in case there's any question out there, you might be wondering, what is an autoresponder? If it's still unclear, let me give you my definition of an autoresponder. An autoresponder is an email that gets sent automatically to a new subscriber after a certain number of days. If you are on my email list, I currently have, as of the beginning of 2015, I have, I think, 8 or 9 autoresponders that you will get across the first 30 days. So the first week or so, you'll get a handful, and then they start slowing down over time. But you want to stay top of mind for the people who sign up for your list. They don't want to sign up and then get an email from you 3 months later and have them looking at it on their phone and say, who the heck is Ellery? Did I sign up for this? You don't want that kind of stuff. So you want to start providing value immediately to everybody who signs up for your list. And when you're ready to grow from blog to business, autoresponders are a fantastic way to do that. It's how I've built a lot of relationships. It's how I have stayed in contact with people who joined my list when I first started. And by the way, if you are interested in learning how to better target your list, if you're interested in learning more about how you can segment that list and know who's interested, who's involved, and who is invested in your audience, go to empoweredpodcast.com/76. I got to write that time. Go to 76, and there will be a link there to register for my next webinar where I will show you exactly what I do to target the 3 different types of people that are on my list. Again, autoresponders will allow you to get valuable information into the inbox of a subscriber without them having to visit your site. And if it's evergreen content, it can just send out on a regular basis. You can customize those and include first names. And if you want to use how I do that, or if you want to copy my method, sign up for my list. And I have it on good authority that if you attend the webinar and you attend it live, you can download my 4 highest performing autoresponders. They're absolutely free. Each one of those 4 has over a 60% open rate, which I think is pretty good. So again, I have 8 or 9 autoresponders. I'm going to give you the top 4 with a 60+% open rate. The other ones perform pretty well, but these are the highest performing ones, and I'll give you those for free if you go to if you register for the webinar. If you're on your computer right now and you want to do it, go to ellerywells.com/webinar and you can register right there. But you can send exclusive tips, tricks, information, all these kinds of things over an extended period of time. I think at one point Pat Flynn had 30 different autoresponders. I know because in one of his emails he says, "Ellery, you're on autoresponder number 27, or either 27 or 28." And he said something to the effect of, you must be pretty dedicated or whatever. So you can throw in those kinds of things. People who are seasoned online marketers, people who've used email marketing tools before, they know it's an autoresponder. They know partly because at the bottom it gives, per FTC guidelines, you have to give people a way to unsubscribe easily or update their preferences. So anytime you see that, it's probably an autoresponder. Not necessarily anything wrong with that. I still read Pat's emails, still think he's a cool dude. Hopefully you still read my emails and think I'm a cool dude. So nothing wrong with autoresponders. But that's an easy way to tell if you're getting an autoresponder. So I send the people on my list blogging tips, tools to help them grow their businesses, resource lists, and I again, when we mentioned the call to action a minute ago, I always ask people to reply and tell me what they're working on, what's not going so well, what is going well. Ask them to update me about their business. And even though it's an autoresponder, and if you're listening to this and you are getting my autoresponders, or you sign up and you want to start getting emails from me, I genuinely want to know. Just because I wrote the email a month ago or 2 months ago doesn't mean that I don't actually want to know what you're going through, what's working, what's not working. And I want to hear from you. I'd love to hear back or get more email responses from people on my list. And if that's you, thank you for being on the list. And send me a note. I reply to the next one and let me know what you're up to. Just let me know a little bit about your life. That would thrill me to death. I would absolutely love to hear from you. So Aweber accomplishes my first goal of getting into the inbox by scrubbing and vetting every email address that I import. GetResponse does the same thing. And by filtering out anonymous emails like the info at, user at, CEO at, customer service at, or whatever email addresses, they can create a higher quality list than possibly MailChimp would. I know MailChimp does do filtering of email addresses, but they may not be quite as thorough as Aweber, GetResponse, Infusionsoft, etc. So Aweber accomplishes my second goal by offering an autoresponder. MailChimp, their free version, does not. You can go to their automation, which you can buy, I think, a bunch of emails for like $9. I tested it out for $9, or you can get on a $15 or $20 or $30 a month plan with them as well. But they don't offer it as part of their free plan. And since MailChimp does not have an autoresponder in their free version, they really can't compete when you're looking at growing from blog or podcast to business. And as I just mentioned, MailChimp does have premium plans at a fairly good price. At that $9 trial, it comes down to 3 cents an email. And I didn't know how many emails I sent in December until I tallied it. And even with a pretty small business like I have, I sent 924 emails in December, I think. So without a list in the hundreds or thousands or tens of thousands even, or even in the thousands, I still sent almost 1,000 emails. So just keep that in mind. If you're paying per email, it does kind of add up. But based on on their ability to transform your blog into a business or your podcast into a business, this round will definitely go to Aweber, and if we were including GetResponse in that, it would go to GetResponse as well. The last category that I wanted to look at, and this is pretty important. This is a big one, and kind of was a deal breaker for me as to the decision to move away from Aweber. But it's this subscriber management category. When I started really getting serious about transforming my blog into a business, I realized I wanted to target specific customers with specific interests. And again, I tell you, or show you a lot more screenshots, very visual in the webinar. So if you go to ellerywells.com/webinar, you can sign up for that for free. But I wanted to target specific people with specific needs and specific wants. And the reason is, the better you know what your readers or your listeners need and what they're looking for, the better you can serve them. And the better you serve your audience, the more influence you will have with them. Notice with, not over. The more influence you'll have with them, and honestly, the more money you can make. Instead of a general one-size-fits-all blanket solution, you can be extremely specific and highly targeted to the people in your audience and really meet real needs instead of hypothetical needs of a broad audience. No one wants to hear you talking to the group. They want to hear you talking to them. And hopefully, as you listen to this podcast, you hear me talking to you, Stephen, or Marshall, or Ashley, or Jen, whoever you are out there. I'm talking to you. I might not have mentioned your name just now, but that same process applies to your emails. People want to know that you are talking specifically and directly to them. Anyway, when it comes to managing these email subscribers, both services, or all three services in this case, have their good points and their bad points. It's quite frustrating because none of these email marketing tools that I've looked at are the complete solution. Even when I looked at Infusionsoft, which is like $1,000 to $2,000 to set up and $200 or $300 a month, there are still things that I want to do, or I would love to be able to do, that even the Cadillac won't do. So just keep that in mind. Every system will have its flaws. Yes, I know it's frustrating, but honestly, you might not have those same frustrations that I do, and I think for the most part, you'll be able to work completely fine within the framework that any one of these tools provides. But MailChimp allows you to freely move subscribers from one list to another. You can copy and paste, you can import people, you can move people from from one list to another, you can copy people from one list to another, and they're on both. So MailChimp allows you to do that with quite a bit of freedom. And again, I can copy and paste people from my interested in business list to my master list that everybody's on with relative ease. Yes, you have to confirm that you have permission from the end user, the subscriber, to add them to their list, but MailChimp's not going to triple opt-in you like Aweber will, or require you to wait 2 days to get their blessing on moving people from one list to another. Since I'm moving people from a very targeted list to a broader list, I'm okay with it. Aweber isn't. I've never had anybody complain. Actually, that's not true. One person hit spam, but he told me it was a mistake and we worked it out. But I've never had anybody complain about that because I'm open, honest, and as transparent as I can be throughout this entire process. So, again, Aweber has a problem with it. I don't, and my subscribers don't. So why do I want to be handicapped by my tool? Just a hypothetical question out there. But it's out there, and it was a problem for me. What you don't want to do is mix the members of a completely separate list that you manage under that same account. You don't want to mix those. You don't want to spam your list. You want to, as valuable as your email list is to you, think about how valuable someone's email address is to that person. So just be conscious, or conscientious, I think is the better term there, when you're moving people to a list. Here's one thing that is kind of cool with Aweber. Aweber approaches user management in a very different way. Like I've been complaining or ranting about your ability or inability to move people with ease. They do give you the freedom to move users automatically. So if you go to list options and list automation, you can set up rules to subscribe people to list A whenever people subscribe to list B or C or D or however many lists you have. They make it fairly easy to create these automation rules. And again, if you go to empoweredpodcast.com/76 and click through to that post with all of the screenshots and the arrows and all the cool graphics and stuff, you'll see about halfway down the page exactly how you can do that. So I've set up an automation rule that subscribes every new person to my master list, my everybody email, again, for those broadcasts, those newsletters, those campaigns that I want to send updates to everyone. So I have created this automation rule that will add people to this master list whenever they subscribe to any of my really targeted lists. By doing this, I can send a broadcast email to everyone in the community one week and an email targeting specific subscribers, like interested in online business, interested in blogging or podcasting or leadership or productivity. I can send those emails with an autoresponder the next week. The problem with Aweber's solution is you can't move people from one list to another or even tag them with their interests after they sign up. It's kind of a problem. You either have to move the subscriber by hand and send them the triple opt-in, or make a request through Aweber support, or you can send them an email and say, hey, this is something you might want, and click here to opt in, blah, blah, blah. But it's not easy, and I honestly don't think it's the best solution for your subscribers either. If you want to consolidate lists or change the name of the list, or it just became a headache for me. Even if you've tagged every subscriber with your interest in a custom field, so back before I just said they don't allow you to tag them after they sign up, you actually can. If you go into the user, you can add custom fields in some of those things, like a custom field. Maybe I want to put you subscribed to my list, but I know we met at Podcast Movement, and I want to tag that so I can send an email to all of the people who, again, have opted into my list, but who were also at Podcast Movement. Say, hey, come hear me speak, or I just applied to speak, something like that. There's no way to target users with that interest when you send a new broadcast email. So even though you can tag them, you go into create a broadcast, you can't send them an email. Now, there may be a way to filter by these custom tags and then create the broadcast. You're just simply flipping the process, choosing the broadcast first or selecting the people first. I honestly don't know. I didn't try that. But if you go in and create a broadcast, you have to choose it to list. You can't send it to people with a certain tag. So yes, I can include or exclude an entire list, and there's a screenshot there at the URL you're probably tired of me hearing about. Yes, you can include or exclude a list, but not by the interest that I'm tagged in. So if Aweber won't allow me to move people freely from one list to another after they've opted in, what's the point of including or excluding by list anyway? So it's just kind of pointless if you ask me. And I'm not trying to hate on Aweber. It's just I had a frustrating experience, and there was just a lot of little things, which again is why I went to GetResponse. Anyway, MailChimp makes moving people from one list extremely easy, or copying them. After testing the difference between copying and moving, my recommendation is that you choose to, quote, combine the lists, and then further segment by groups within a list. There's another screenshot with that if you go to the post there. And combining a segmented list with a master list and adding people to specific groups is just a lot easier. You can choose to send to people within specific groups, and then by combining them all onto one list, if someone wants to unsubscribe, it unsubscribes them from everything and less likely to piss somebody off. But again, just to note, once you combine lists, the users are removed from the first list and moved, not copied, to the list you combine it with. So again, in the image that I'm referencing here, the users are no longer be in the interested in, let's say, podcasting. They will be moved to the whole list, but put into a podcasting group. So MailChimp makes it easy to move users, combine lists, keep interests and tags, and segment by group. But Aweber makes copying people from one list to another extremely easy with their automation rules. So I like easy and automated, and based on easy and automated, this round also is a tie. I would say if Aweber didn't have that automation, it would go hands down. It would. I'm just thinking about all the time I spent setting up those rules. It would be hands down MailChimp. So maybe this is what you have been looking for this entire time. Why MailChimp? Why Aweber? And possibly why you might need both. Well, MailChimp is one of my favorite tools for bloggers, business owners, and entrepreneurs. You've probably picked up on that by now. They allow beginners to do just that, begin. They allow beginners to begin. By having a free option, MailChimp removes any barrier to us getting started. When you're first starting, if you don't have a lot of money, or you don't want to spend your personal money on all these business things, free is a way to go. And when you're in the beginning stages of building your online business, you don't know what you don't know, and spending money on a tool you haven't grown into doesn't make a whole lot of sense. So I would suggest you don't do that. And MailChimp is a perfect tool for beginners and even some more advanced users. I think for some of his stuff, even Michael Hyatt, who gets 5 million page views and has 400,000 people on his list, I think he uses MailChimp for some of his campaigns and email newsletters, so it can scale with you. But why might you look at Aweber? Well, as your business grows, as mine has grown tremendously over the last 3 years, thank you for your help with that. As your business grows, you'll quickly learn that the value of having an email list and nurturing it and adding value to people on that list. And one of the best ways to connect with your followers is not on social media, but it's through email. And while Aweber isn't the only game in town, again, we mentioned Constant Contact, Infusionsoft, GetResponse, Entreport. There's a handful of them all across the price spectrum. So while Aweber isn't the only game in town when it comes to autoresponders, they're definitely one of the most popular. Pat Flynn's been using them for a long time. I think Derek Halpern uses them as well. If you want a straightforward email marketing tool that gives you autoresponder functionality, Aweber is a solid choice. At $20 a month, it won't break the bank. If you go to the link at empoweredpodcast.com/76, you can try 30 days for just $1. I'll have a link there. You can try for just $1. And it won't break the bank. If you're $20 a month, probably won't put your business into the red, and it'll be a good investment as you transition from intermediate blogger to internet business. As I mentioned before, GetResponse is $15 a month, so 15 versus 20. Aweber at 20 allows you to have 500 subscribers. GetResponse allows you to have 1,000 for $5 less. Here's the thing. Don't lose any sleep over $5 a month. That's less than the price of Netflix. That's 2 gallons of gas in your car. Don't worry. Just pick one and go with it. If you have further questions, feel free to ask, and I will tell you all the ins and outs of why I switched. But if you want a straightforward autoresponder function in your email service, Aweber, you can't go wrong with it. But here's why you might need both. If you have an email course like mine, like my 30 days email course, or one where you want to have everyone start to receive emails on the same day, you can't do that with Aweber, because you can't move people from one list to another and trigger an autoresponder series. You can't do that. The only way that you can do that with Aweber is if you wanted people to start receiving your weekly emails, like I do for my course, at the next Tuesday after they sign up. There's no way to get everybody starting and finishing and getting at the same time and getting all those emails together. Since Aweber doesn't allow you to freely move people from a list, like I want to have a 30 days wait list versus 30 days student, since I can't do that with Aweber, which would allow this autoresponder series, I still send my lessons with MailChimp, because GetResponse allows me to move people from one list freely to another. I've now set that up with autoresponders, and we won't get into that today, but that has made my life so much easier. But with MailChimp, I can send lesson 1 to the people who have joined since a certain date, and the previous class is closed and before the next class is open. So you can set them by groups and tag them that way. And I can group students, but by not only by time, but by their activity as well. They make it very easy to select people who have opened a campaign, or they were sent the last 5 campaigns, or they clicked the campaigns. And I was not able to find that functionality inside of Aweber, and it's very easy within MailChimp, and there is a screenshot of there in the blog post I've been mentioning. So what is the final verdict when you're looking at MailChimp versus Aweber, or MailChimp versus any premium email marketing service? What is the final verdict? If I were starting my online business today in 2015, I would 100% start with MailChimp. No doubt, hands down, no doubt in my mind, I would go with MailChimp. There's no reason, if you are in the first 6 months of your business and you have yet to make your first dollar, there is no reason you need to start paying $20 a month for Aweber when you're just starting. While Aweber does have the autoresponder series, if you are just beginning, and maybe if you've been doing this a while and you haven't put any time into the autoresponders, you probably won't have enough content to create one in the first place. So you're paying for Aweber for the autoresponders, and you don't have any. You're just throwing $20. What is that? 20 times 12. That's $200 something a year out the window that you could be reinvesting or buying tools that you're actually going to get use out of, because it makes no difference at all, zilch nada, no difference to your subscribers which email marketing service you use. So go with the simplest and also, in this case, the cheapest option. MailChimp allows you to have up to 2,000 subscribers before they charge you. That they also put a caveat on there that's 12,000 emails a month. If you had 2,000 subscribers and 6 emails a month, that's a little bit more than one a week, they would start to charge you. Aweber starts again at $20 per month for up to 500 users, unlimited emails. GetResponse is $15 for up to 1,000 users or subscribers and unlimited emails. Infusionsoft, by the way, is big startup cost, $200 per month. Unlimited users, unlimited sends, but it's really something that's not for beginners. So both services integrate with popular plugins. Like I mentioned before, I use Opt-in Skin, I use Optimize Press, all three, actually all of the services that we mentioned today work with both of those, so don't worry about that. And both services also have mobile apps to keep stat-hungry people like myself if you're checking your phone for new subscribers and updates and all that kind of stuff, all of these services also have a mobile app for Android. And if it's on Android, it's probably on iOS too. So if you're wanting to check those stats, you can do that. However, whenever you're ready to grow your blog and transform it into a business, looking at these premium tools is something that I would highly recommend, largely because of autoresponders, user management, and some of those things. So for the final tally, first round on first impressions, that goes to MailChimp. Second round, the getting started process, that goes to MailChimp. Adding subscription forms, round 3, that also goes to MailChimp. Sending one-time emails, the broadcast, the campaigns, the newsletters, that was a tie. Growing from blog to business, that goes to Aweber and premium services like it. And then for subscriber management, that's also a tie. So again, if you're keeping score, that is, and if each round were given a point value, that would be 5 for MailChimp and 3 for Aweber. However, that growing from blog to business is a pretty big deal. What's the bottom line? Grow into Aweber and use MailChimp as long as possible. If you are ready to test automation and autoresponders, try MailChimp's solution, and you can pay, like I mentioned before, 3 cents per email. You can get $9 or spend $9 and get 300 credits. That's 1 credit for every email you send, so that's where they get the 3 cents for, and that's their pay-as-you-go plan. I sent a handful of emails, so I've got 260 credits, I think, still sitting there. But again, $9 wasn't going to break the bank, and it gave me some more insight to help you. That's a great way. Again, their automation series with MailChimp is a great way to test the waters and see if you are ready to jump in all the way without signing in for a commitment. But again, if you go to empoweredpodcast.com/76, you can get a 1-month trial of Aweber for $1 using my link. And if you want to get a 30-day trial for free with GetResponse, you can also find that link at empoweredpodcast.com/60. I hope you have found this analysis, this comparison, this either or, this vice versa. I hope you found this episode valuable. If you have found it valuable and you want to check out my entrepreneur training site, I'll have a link to my membership site in the show notes at episode 76. Plus how-to videos are all in there and everything like that. And if you want to sign up for my webinar, the link is there. If you want to sign up for my 30-day blog to business transformation, that will be at 76. There's a lot. So if you want to replay this episode, I completely understand. And if you would like to sign up for any of these services using my affiliate link, which won't cost you anything, and again, you can get your first month of Aweber for $1. You can get your first month of GetResponse for free. All of the affiliate links will be at empoweredpodcast.com/76. Hopefully, at this point, you have taken page after page of notes. I know I spent about 2 months doing the research to share this information with you, and hopefully it's provided you with not only a starting point, but pointed you in the right direction as well. This is another episode of the Empowered Podcast. I'm your host, Ellery Wells. I'm glad you're here. I will talk to you next week. Thanks for listening.